A while back, I did a video questioning if the original Ice Age's reputation was somewhat marred or destroyed by it having a ton of sequels that many saw as getting increasingly mediocre. And you can find a link in the description to that video in case you're curious. But today, instead of going over that particular question again, I would instead like to personally go over every movie in the Ice Age series and compare each one's strengths and weaknesses. So needless to say, there will be spoilers ahead, so in case there's a particular movie you haven't seen but plan to, you probably shouldn't proceed with this video. And once again, let me just clarify that this is not a ranking of these movies or my own personal preferences towards them. I'm simply exploring what's good and bad about each one, going in opposite order from their release. So that would then first lead us right into Ice Age Collision Course. Considered the absolute lowest of the low for the series, all of the sequel's flaws finally came to a head and made a movie that was practically unrecognizable from the original. Sure, it does have a couple of funny moments sprinkled in, but they definitely are not enough to redeem this movie of the plethora of issues it has. Really? I don't have much else to say other than that it's easily the worst movie in the series. And next we have Ice Age Continental Drift. Though not nearly as bad as Collision Course, this movie is often criticized for having its own issues, mainly in the form of Peach's subplot that many feel is completely cliche and unnecessary, and that on the whole the movie suffers from some bad writing. However, there is also good stuff to be had. It's got a pretty interesting premise, Sid's grandma actually makes for some pretty funny comic relief, and Captain Gut is easily the best villain in the entire series. But considering I already did a whole separate video concerning that, I'll just leave it at that. So simply put, this movie has some major good points and bad points, which I'm pretty sure many can agree is how you can sum up the majority of these movies. And then there's Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs. Though disliked by some because of its much more absurdist approach in what had been up until that point a pretty grounded series, the general consensus seems to be that the franchise would have been better off just stopping here. It's got an interesting plot, and if nothing else, certainly does something different with its characters, especially by not adding a ton of totally unnecessary ones for once. And, of course, the show-stealing buck certainly does nothing to detract from it. So on the whole, this one was honestly pretty good and would have made for an appropriate end to the characters' stories. Then we have Ice Age The Meltdown, which is considered by most non-fans of the series to be pretty much the only good one besides the original. And I honestly feel that's the best way to sum it up. That out of all the sequels, this one hands down did the best job of capturing the spirit and heart of the original. Sure, it's not a perfect sequel, but compared to what would come later, most would probably agree that it was a decent follow-up to the original. And finally, there is the original Ice Age itself. And what can I really say other than that if it hadn't been for the success of this movie, none of its sequels would have ever happened. Having a surprising amount of heart and telling a pretty good story, this is a movie that's worthy of the praise it's gotten. Sure, maybe it can't match against, say, Pixar's best, has dated animation, and a somewhat skewed reputation, but as far as I'm concerned, that isn't enough to take away from the fact that at the end of the day, this movie is good. Though again, I already did a separate video going deeper into that, so for the moment I'll just leave it at that. Alright, I think that pretty much covers everything. So now I want to hear what you guys think. What did you personally think of the original Ice Age and its various sequels? And how do they compare to the consensus that I just presented? Please let me know in the comments. And remember, you are entitled to your own opinion on this or any other matter. So if you disagreed with anything or everything I said in this video, that's totally fine. And thank you all for watching. It is all greatly appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.